Okay, students, today we're going to do a little activity. We're going to start getting more into TinkerCAD, and I think most of you have used it a little bit before at least, but maybe not too much at this point. TinkerCAD is the software that we're going to do most of our 3D design work in, and what we're going to do with to kind of get familiar with how to navigate TinkerCAD is we're going to do some practicing. Sorry if you can hear my coffee back there going. We're going to do some practicing with just manipulating blocks in TinkerCAD, and then you're going to do some more practice with orthographic drawings and isometric drawings with the designs that you create in TinkerCAD. So we'll go ahead and we'll get you all logged in, and we'll make sure everybody's set up that way. And once we're in, you'll notice that I pulled in just some random shapes into my work plane over here. The shapes are over on this side, and you can see that I've got just these basic shapes. There's also, if you click on the down symbol, you can get connectors and text and other stuff. But we're just going to stick with the basic shapes for now. So if I want one of these shapes, all I have to do is drag it in here. And that's it. So for our purposes here, I'm going to go ahead and delete that block by hitting the delete key, just because I don't want it in there right now. So for our purposes of this assignment, I want to keep things simple. And that means you're not going to change the size of anything. So you're not changing the size or the color or anything with any of these blocks. We're just going to move them around and place them in certain positions. So one thing that helps when you're working in TinkerCAD is to place a ruler. So if I click the ruler button over here, I can then drag in a ruler into the plane, and I'm just placing it over here in the corner. But what that's going to do is that's going to allow us to see different measurements. So notice when I click on a block, now I've got all these different measurements that appear. And that's going to tell me several things. It's going to tell me how wide it is, how long it is, how tall it is. And it'll tell me, you can see right here, it can tell me how high something is off the work plane, which is important because we're going to be kind of stacking up some various blocks here. So I want you to know how high it is. So now that I know that, so if I know that this block is 20 tall, then I know that this one right here, that I want it, whoops, I didn't mean to do that. Control Z to undo. Okay, then I can set that to 20 millimeters tall, and then I can stack things. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and lower it back down to the work plane for now. Alright, so I picked these blocks out here because these are the only blocks I want you to use. Just you can use any of these blocks, but when you're building your structure, I want you to use no more than, let's say, 8 blocks. Okay, so no more than 8 blocks. So you could use all boxes if you want. You could use all cylinders, or you can use a mix of any of them, right? So you can use all of one type. Just no more than 8, and these are the only ones I want you to use. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete all these. And we're just going to put a box in here, and I'm going to go over some basic, just how to use TinkerCAD. So I find it much easier to use a mouse. A lot of students don't use mice when they're doing it, but it's easier for me. So it's important to know that there are just different ways to do things depending on whether or not you have a mouse. So for instance, let's just look at how to select something first. All I want to do is left click onto the block if I want to select it. Okay. Or if I want to select multiple blocks at once, I can click left click and I can drag and I can select things that way too. Okay. Now, if I have a block selected and I want to move it, I simply left click on it and then move my mouse. So I left click with one hand with my left hand, and then I use the touchpad with my right hand, and then I can move it. Okay, and that moves it back and forth on the work plate. Notice it's not going up and down, I'm just sliding it back and forth. If I want to go up and down, I have to click this black arrow up top here, this little black cone. If I left click that, then I can raise it up or down using the trackpad. Okay. So that's kind of your basic object manipulation. Then you need to know how to get around the work plane. So I can scroll in and out using 2 fingers and dragging. I can rotate the work plane by right clicking and moving the mouse. Okay, so now I've got the right mouse button clicked. Okay, and then I'm using the touchpad to move it in and out. Or you'll notice this block was moving over here. I can also left click on this block and move it around too if I want to move the work plane. So those are kind of your just basics, and then I have zoom buttons over here as well. One thing that's good to know is I can click home view, okay, and it'll go back to this spot. And then you might have seen that I can also click orthographic view. Orthographic or perspective view. So if I click orthographic view, it just puts it right down flat, okay, on the ground, which is kind of a weird view. But so here's what you're going to do. Here's what your job is you're going to take those shapes and you're going to create so again I'm just pulling them in here, and you're going to create kind of a collection of shapes, and then you're going to do on graph paper an orthographic and isometric drawing of it, of your shape. And then you're going to try to build someone else's. Once you're finished, you'll give it to someone else and they will try to build it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. One thing that I should show you how to do is how to rotate. So say you want to rotate something. So let's say I got this guy right here. You'll see that I've got these little arrows. I can rotate it. Okay, probably what you want to do is, depending on where you're at, you can rotate it by certain degrees. If you go inside these lines, okay, if you go outside the lines, then you do it 1 degree at a time. So I would stick inside and stick to like pretty basic, like 90-degree turns and things like that if you're going to do those rotations. And again, I just got to do them different ways if I want to do it different. So I've got rotation arrows to go around all the different ways. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pause the video, and then I'm going to make a shape. Okay, so I finished my shape. I've got just a simple little 5-block shape here. I'm going to use my arrow key to move that one just a little bit so it's perfectly lined up. Okay. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take a front view. Okay, so I'm going to click front over here on the block, and then I'm going to draw that on my graph paper. Right? And then I'm going to rotate that around, and I'm going to draw the top view. Go back to the front, I'm going to rotate it around, and I'm going to draw the right view. And then click the home button. We want to get a view that's maybe about like that, and we'll draw that for my isometric view. And then I will hand this out to people, and they will have to try to make it based on my drawings. Okay, so that's what I want you to do. Create a shape, simple, no more than 8 blocks, do the orthographic drawings, do the isometric drawing, and then we'll hand it out and we'll see if somebody else can figure it out and get it made in TinkerCad. Okay, good luck.